to your trip. But I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be worried about the longevity or the length of my address, because over the years, as a diplomat who went around the world, I have learned that a good speech, or rather tailoring a good speech, is like the skirt of a woman. It should be long enough to cover the essentials and yet short enough to arouse further curiosity. Having said that, I'm still concerned why Dr. Saeed chose me to become the keynote speaker about a person about whom I knew so little. But over here, in the last 1 hour or so that we have heard so many speakers describing the personality, the persona, the traits of character of Dr. Atamjit Singh, I have been able to create in my mind the portrait of a man who reminds me of another person who was like a saint. Many of you may have heard about Hakim Muhammad Saeed, who was the founder of the Hamdard Foundation, dedicated to Eastern medicine in Pakistan. And his older brother, Hakim Abdul Hamid, has done the same thing in India by establishing Hamdard Foundation of India. Hakim Saeed was murdered in Karachi at the prime of his life. And I remember when he passed away, I was in Kuwait at that time. And a Kuwaiti friend of Hakim Saeed, who happened to be the Minister of Health of that country, came to me and he said, "Ambassador, you know, Hakim Saeed was a man the like of whom God has stopped creating anymore. And Atamjit Singh, from what I've heard about him, certainly belonged to that community of mankind, that type of prolific man that God is nowadays quite choosy about producing in this world." This is a meeting which is quite interesting. It is diversified, it is eclectic. Come to think of it, we have a keynote speaker who has been imported from Canada. We have chief guest who is an ex-senator. We have the MC who is of Arab origin. We have an audience which is made up of people of India and Pakistan and Turkey and some other countries. What does it establish? It proves that this is a great cosmopolitan group, that we are all citizens of a larger community of men. We are inhabitants of what has now come to be described as the global village. We are all living in our global village. We have become one composite community, transcending all the differences that we outwardly see in each other. We may be speaking different dialects, different languages, we may have different faiths, we may be followers of different religions, and yet there is one common element overriding all these differences. And that common element is the element of humanity that we share with each other. And that is such a valuable asset. That is something that we, despite all our differences, despite our springing from verified origins, despite our being people of different provenance, we should be proud of the fact that we belong to a cultured group, a group that can rise above all these differences. And as a Muslim, I believe what the Holy Scripture, the Quran says, where God has pronounced clearly and categorically that we have created you in different tribes, in different groups, so that you may identify yourselves. Otherwise, God was capable, and He says it in His holy book, that had He wished it so, He could have created every human being on this planet exactly the same. We would have had the same color of skin, we would have had same thoughts, same features, everything in common. And yet, He decided to create us so differently from each other. And since God's creation always have a logic, the logic was that He wanted to throw a challenge to mankind. We are creating you differently in order to test your resilience, in order to see if you can rise above these petty differences and prove yourselves worthy of creation. And that was the kind of man that we have gathered here this afternoon to honor and to pay tribute to, because he was a man who did not let his journey in life be restrained or atrophied or cut short by what divides us. He, as a humanist, as an educationist, believed that what unites us is a far more powerful element than those petty differences that divide us into various groups, into various communities, into various factions. And that was something that I'm sure that he, in that other world, must be proud of. His successors, those who share his legacy, should also feel proud of the fact that he was a man who did honor the trust, the faith that his Creator had reposed in him. I was going through the biodata of the great man and realized that there were quite a few things that I could proudly say I share with him.